Hello, you cool cats and kittens. It's Carol Baskin, and you are listening to Fascination Street.
I believe that everybody has a story, and I'm fascinated to hear them. So come with me as we take a walk down Fascination Street. Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with Antonio Longo. Antonio Longo is a Long Island, New York boy who grew up in the punk scene and eventually helped form the band Taking Back Sunday. Now, he did get out of that band before they hit the mainstream, but still, you got to give him credit for being one of the founding members and helping create that band. So we talk about some of his music, some of the people that he played with and the bands that he's been in and why he loves music so much. And then we talk about his new love that he got during COVID. Nope, he didn't catch COVID. He caught the podcast bug. As a huge fan of The Cure, Antonio started his own podcast called, you guessed it, Fascination Street. And on his Fascination Street podcast, it's all about The Cure. He goes over their discography. He talks about different things that they've done, whether it was writing songs for movies or some of the other bands that the members of The Cure were in. It's a really fun show. I have been a subscriber since I found it 6 months ago or 4 months ago or whatever it was. I am all caught up. I never missed an episode of his version of Fascination Street podcast, and I love it. This was 4 or 5 months to get this to happen with our schedules, and this is my conversation with Antonio Longo, the host of Fascination Street podcast.
Yeah, talk to me, yeah.
Welcome to Fascination Street podcast, Antonio Longo. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing good. How are you, my friend?
I am fan-freaking-tastic. Ask me why.
Why are you fan-freaking-tastic?
Because you and I have been playing this schedule game for it feels like 4 months, man.
Right? I know.
All right. So what I like to do, Antonio, is I like to start off finding out where people grew up. It kind of helps us understand how they got from where they were to where they are. So let her go, man. Where were you born and raised?
I am straight up New York, Long Island native. Grew up here. I have lived here almost all of my life. When I was a baby, we had moved to California for a short time where my sister was born, but we then moved back. So pretty much all my memories and everything reside in Long Island. And I kind of grew up in a smaller town in Long Island, not too far from the city. You know, I'm an East Coast boy. What can I say?
So your parents just moved across the country so that they could say they had one kid born on each coast?
I guess so. I think my mom wasn't too into the earthquakes and the gigantic spiders.
They got big spiders over there?
She was telling me a story about a tarantula climbing up the wall to the point where my father wouldn't come into the room to get it fast enough. So she loaded the shotgun. And once he heard he came in the room and realized she was serious. And she said the thing was like the size of a baseball.
She didn't pull the trigger, right?
She did not. Yeah. Allegedly.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because I just heard a story. Do you know who John Popper is?
Yeah.
He's a singer for Blues Traveler. And
yes.
he was telling Adam Carolla a story about how, because he has a cabin like out in the woods. He's a big gun dude or whatever.
Yeah.
He said that there was a squirrel in his house, like up sort of by the roof, like in the living room or whatever. He shot it. It was inside his house and he just grabbed a gun and fucking blew it off the wall. Like,
that's crazy.
And that's why I was asking if your mom pulled the trigger.
No, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I've thought about shooting the birds outside of my window in the morning, but I've never actually pulled the trigger. Don't know if I could quite do that.
Let's talk about how cool you are, man. So tell me about how you got into music.
Music's been a part of my life since as long as I can remember.
You said ever since you can remember, but walk me through that. How's that work?
My mom was always super big into music. She played guitar. She played piano. She always sang to us when we were kids.
What'd she sing?
Everything from like Joan Baez, Beatles, Bob Dylan. Those were some of her big ones. Jim Croce, stuff like that. she was a hippie. She went to Woodstock. She marched on Washington with Martin Luther King. She was one of those people that I would definitely hang out with back then. So it was always in our house. She would give piano lessons to other kids, and there was always music on, and I loved it. I was very involved, I guess you could say, with church as a kid. Mom always had to bring us to church. She was super into that. I was in the choir. I went to a private Christian school. So I got to sing. So I got comfortable at a very young age being on quote unquote stage, I guess you could say. And I was always drawn to it. And I think finally I asked my mom if I could play her guitar, and she taught me like 3 simple chords. And I learned how to play Blowin' in the Wind by Dylan, which was just 3 chords. It was very easy. And then it gave me that confidence to say, oh, wow, I can play a Bob Dylan song. Shit, I could be a musician,
Nice.
As a young kid, I remember being home from school sick, and it was Elvis Presley's birthday. So they were showing all the Elvis movies on TV. And I remember watching it and going, this guy can get on a table in a restaurant, start singing, and everybody stops. I was like, that's what I'm talking about. And it's funny because my mom could not stand Elvis Presley, and I became an Elvis fan. That was my aspiration. In the movies, as cheesy as they were for the time, he was really the first big thing. Nobody was as big as he was when he got there. There weren't those insane celebrities. Like, he kind of started that whole thing. And for me, he would speak through song. And that's what kind of those movies, as cheesy as they were, if he was trying to tell this girl how he felt, it went into a song. If he was trying to do this, it went into a song. And I think my love for Elvis Presley turned into my love just for music in general, because I saw what it did in his movies, like how it was the catalyst, how it was the way that people spoke. So the second I had a cassette player with double-sided, I was making mixtapes.
All right, kids. So a cassette player is, I'm just kidding.
But it taught me to speak in song. So I was making mixtapes. I was capturing songs on the radio hidden from my mom, because at that point I wanted to listen to Guns N' Roses. I wanted to listen to Motley Crue, but those things weren't fitting that Christian mold. So I would be in there with headphones on my radio, waiting for it to come on the radio and record it. Unfortunately, I almost had to be secretive about my music. My sister was super into Michael Jackson and, all that stuff. And then, I discovered bands like The Cure and U2. Now, here was stuff that wasn't as metally, but it had this melody. It had like purpose,
Feeling.
Yeah, feeling. And then at that point, now you're talking 15, 16, living in Long Island, there was a huge birth going on in the Long Island hardcore scene. It was kind of stretched out from New York City. It was a little bit different. These little underground clubs were popping up everywhere. And by the time I was like 17, I could go to a local show down the block from my house, take my skateboard there, and for $3, I was seeing 6 bands. I mean, we were packing 500 to 1,000 people in a warehouse with a stage. And I was like, sign me the fuck up. I was like, this is awesome. It then furthered my desire to play music, because these were all local bands. None of them had labels. It was this DIY thing. I was just so drawn to it. It was a brotherhood. It was a society. It was me saying, wow, I can do this. I can be in a band. And I ended up joining my first serious band, which was called Scarab, and they needed a bass player. I was just a fan. I found out the bass player quit. I was playing guitar that my mom had taught me. She bought my brother a bass. He never touched it. I went home and I said, I'm going to learn how to play this goddamn thing because I want to be in that band. That's exactly what I did. And that kind of started it.
How long were they looking, or how fast did you learn?
Man, I told them that I played guitar and dabbled in bass outside of this little club in Lindenhurst called Dr. Shays, right in the neighborhood I grew up in. I mean, it was literally a towny bar that would let us throw shows there. We had connected just as me being a fan, getting to kind of know them, and I would go to all their shows. And they were like, all right, well, here's the most recent demo. Learn a few of these songs and come down. So I spent an entire week just sitting in front of my radio with that cassette, learning how to play those songs and just figuring it out. I've always had a natural ear for music. I can't read music or write it out. I kind of taught myself after my mom gave me the basis of it. I went and I saved up money and I bought a chord book and I was looking up chords, and then I would just try to learn things by ear. I was just always an audio learner. I could hear a melody and just remember it. So I legitimately think we just gelled as people so well, and they saw that I had the potential. And Danny, the drummer, just really like took me under his wing and was like, all right, let's do this. And it forever changed me. I was at 17 years old in a van driving cross country on my first tour. You know, this was before cell phones. This was before GPSs. We had a giant atlas map, and I had to buy a calling card from a bodega to call my family from payphones. And it really made me fall in love with playing music. So I fell in love with music at a young age from Elvis Presley movies and from my mom. But joining Scarab and really going out there and being in front of people gave me my passion for playing music and writing it.
So you're 17 and you're touring with Scarab, and they're kind of a heavy punk. How would you describe them?
We were different. We had a girl singer. We had a female singer, Melanie. Yep. I played bass and then eventually sang some backing vocals. Fortunately and unfortunately, this was around the time that No Doubt was just hitting the radio.
Okay.
So Melanie was tall, skinny, blonde hair, fishnet stockings, Doc Martens. So people, they were like, oh, well, this thing on the radio and this thing here, I see similarities. We were melodic. Our foundation was in punk, but I don't know. We were almost a pop band, really. I mean, we didn't fit in. We were playing with tough guy hardcore bands, crusty punk bands, and alternative bands. And like anyone we could play with, anyone we could get in front of. And I think because we had this look and this sound that was different, we always found somebody in the room that liked it, no matter who the other bands were.
Gotcha.
So, you know, we had gotten a lot of label interest because, again, No Doubt was starting to blow up. But I think they wanted us to be more of that. And I think they wanted to mold us, you know, and we kind of weren't about that. So it gave me my first taste of, oh, this label's taking you out to dinner and they're telling you you're the best band in the world. And they're telling you you're going to be big. I'm never going to have a real job. This is great.
I'm not even old enough to order a beer at this restaurant that they're paying for.
Oh, absolutely. You know, so it was interesting.
How do you think that prepared you for the way the music business actually is? And what I mean by that is they promised you the moon and the stars. And I'm going to assume, since I have never seen a Scarab tour hit my neck of the woods, I'm going to assume that didn't pan out the way they said it was going to. So how did that help you or hurt you in your mindset of wanting to be a rock star?
I mean, it gave me the first taste of it, but it also gave me the first taste of disappointment, which is interesting. It's so different than it is now. And I think back, and you almost needed a label, because could 4 people, barely 20, 22, 19, how are we paying to press CDs? How are we buying a van?
How are you paying for recording time?
Yeah.
We didn't have laptops and affordable microphones and all that shit. You couldn't do this at your house.
No, it was a production, and it cost money, thousands and thousands of dollars that you just did not have. So it was a very sick double-edged sword. I eventually ended up leaving the band because we were working harder than any band, but we were not producing the fruit. And it was just getting to the point where it felt like a chore. We were playing and practicing 4 or 5 days a week. I had been singing more, writing more on my own guitar, and I felt like maybe I just needed a change. So I went off and I started a band called Jennifer's Dream. We had a very short-lived amount of time because, other members of the bands were going off and doing other things. And that's when my friend Eddie and Eddie was in a lot of bands in Long Island, started so many great bands, and was just an awesome dude. Him and I were talking at a show, and his thing had just fallen apart, and he was in a lot of it. He started Inside, The Movie Life, Clockwise, Mind Over Matter. These may not be big bands to most of these listeners, but on Long Island, those guys were the Nirvana, the Pearl Jam, the Alice in Chains. They helped birth what was going on in Long Island. Him and I were at a show talking, and that's when things were falling apart for him and me, and we decided to start Taking Back Sunday. So that would be the band that most people know that I was in, but they probably know the band from after I was in it.
Okay, so you and would you say his name was? Did you say Eric?
Eddie Reyes.
Sorry. So you and Eddie basically decided to form this band. Why the name Taking Back Sunday? Where'd that come from?
Man, there are so many myths and stories about that. People used to say that it was a B-side Smiths song. And the irony there is that I hate the Smiths.
Oh, nice. Sweet.
We were friends with a band on Long Island, young kids that were just good kids. And they had a song actually called Taking Back Sunday. And it never, I don't think it ever got released or something like, or they had said it one day. And then Ed and I liked the name. And then this was at the point where CBGB's had now closed down. And I remembered very vividly, like Sunday matinees at CB's were a big deal. It was, I could get into those. I mean, this was where the Ramones played and Blondie. And there I was on that stage eventually one day. And there I was at this club. And this is so cool. And it's Lower East Side, Manhattan. So for me, in liking the name, it was bringing back those good things, whether Sunday was Sunday matinees at CB's or it was just not being in school and hanging with your friends. It was, all right, let's take something back from society or from our youth or from the good times. And maybe other band members will tell you that there were other reasons behind it, but that was kind of where it came from my point. Now, I wasn't playing bass in that band. I was singing in that band, and Eddie was playing guitar. We kind of put the whole thing together, and that's my recollection. I mean, it's many decades ago. So.
Sure. So were you only singing? No guitar, nothing at all? Just singing?
No guitar, just straight singing, which was very fun for me. I got to run around, be silly, jump off stage, whatever it may be. It was a very liberating feeling. As a guitar player, I was never like super into leads. I also honestly came from a family with not tons of money. So I had bass gear, but I didn't have guitar gear now. But here I am, doing something else. So I was like, let me leave the guitar playing to the guitar players. I just want to sing. And that's what I did. And, we were building lots of steam on Long Island. We put out a CD ourselves, a self-titled one with the help of our friend George and Juan Garcia. And they were in a lot of bands, and they both had gone to school for recording and engineering. So they kind of put together their own little label. We released it ourselves. And I was back to having these aspirations and dreams of bigger things.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
If you'd like to help find answers for the families of unsolved crime victims from all over, or perhaps identify a Jane or John Doe, please visit DNAsolves.com, where you can submit your DNA from a consumer testing company like Ancestry or 23andMe to their database. DNAsolves.com.
Let's get back into it.
So are you, at this point, are you guys selling CDs at shows and you're selling CDs out of your trunk, basically?
Pretty much, yeah.
How did that go?
It was going really, really, really well. But then the little annoying intricacies of being in a band start. I mean, I tell people all the time, being in a band is like having 4 girlfriends. You're trying to juggle all the personalities. You're trying to make everybody happy. It's hard. It is definitely one of the hardest things. When I think about bands like, one of my favorite bands, Jimmy Eat World, those have been the same 4 dudes for years. The Get Up Kids, same guys. How the hell do they do it? Because it's not easy. So, little things started to happen, power struggles, because the dynamic of Taking Back Sunday was we didn't sound like anybody else. We had me singing and then the other guitar player, John, doing these kind of back and forth vocals. He was a little more screamy. I was a little more singy. We had a different thing. And then eventually we had gotten a bass player from North Carolina, Adam Lazara. who now is the singer of Taking Back Sunday. But at the time, Adam was also now jumping in on singing. And now he was doing some writing, even though he was playing bass. And the little bullshit that happens between the wanting to sound like this, wanting to play with these bands, mixed in with a little girlfriend drama, got to me after some time, even though we were building steam. And unfortunately, we went our separate ways and I quit. I mean, a lot of magazines will tell you they kicked me out. That is false. You know, unfortunately, I had a girlfriend that was very toxic at the time, and she was kind of that whisper in my ear, just leave. You'll be better off without them.
Yoko.
Go do your own thing. And I did. And they, you know, went on. Adam replaced me singing. They got another bass player and they continued the steam that we were on. We were definitely on our way to a label, and they eventually did do that and have some success. And, you know, I kind of went my own way. And, you know, people are like, do you regret that? Yes and no. I regret the way it happened, but I don't regret that the path life took me on. I don't know if I'd be the man I am today had I stayed on the road, had I stayed playing music, had I really locked into the music industry, because I look at a lot of people in it right now and friends that go through it, and they struggle, man. They go to have families, but they miss birthdays, they miss Christmases, holidays. They have to stay on the road to make money. Is that really what I wanted for my life? And I think I had to come to grips with, no, I play music because I love it. So I don't want anyone to tell me how it has to be, and I don't want it to change who I am. I don't want to be an arrogant asshole. I never made it big, but I learned a lot. I experienced a lot, and I really know why I play music, and it's my therapy. It's not my paycheck. I do it for me, and that's it now, and I'm okay with that. I came to grips with that.
For basically my entire life until about 10 years ago, my dad he played bass and sang in hard rock, heavy metal bands my whole life. And this would have been probably 30 years ago. Him and his best friend in the world, they started a band and they played all the time and they practiced all the time and blah, blah, blah. And they were together for 20 years, you know, but like you said, it's like having a bunch of girlfriends. So when they finally broke up, they haven't talked to each other in 10 years and they were best friends, you know? So I was never in a band because I tried to learn how to play the guitar, but it hurt my little fingers. So I couldn't do it. But, you know, just being around my dad and all his different bands and watching all the things that they went through and just even as a little kid, just sitting back going, you guys are fighting about the dumbest shit.
It's so true.
And then when you grow up and you have relationships, you know, like romantic relationships, you're also sometimes like, we're fighting about the dumbest shit. So I get how you could relate those two different types of relationships. And there's a reason you're only supposed to have one wife or girlfriend at a time, right? Because, whoo.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, you're talking about arguing about like where you're sitting in the van. I mean, t-shirt designs.
Yeah, that must suck.
Again, you know, if I could do it all over, how would I go about it? I don't know. But I still wanted to stand by what I believed. You know, it was coming to the point where I felt like they wanted to sound a certain way and they wanted to wear certain things and play with certain bands. And I was like, no, I just want to write what we write and be who we are. That always doesn't work in the music industry.
Right. Because sometimes you have to be who they want you to be.
Yeah, you do.
I think Lionel Richie said it in Easy Like Sunday Morning. He said, why would I be what they want me to be? Or something like that. He says it in that song. And I was asking the guitar player and founder of the Commodores, I was like, what was that referring to? What was he talking about? And he was like, oh, he was totally talking about the music industry because, you know, they were huge and then they got in the music industry and their label was just trying to mold them and form them. And they were like, we're already big. We're already doing fine. Why are you trying to mold us? And so that's what that song was about. So I completely agree. Back when you were talking about being on tour and you would be missing family things and your kids growing up and stuff like that, this was sometime during COVID. I was lucky enough to have Scott Russo on my show.
Oh, cool.
And, you know, we were talking about that whole thing because he didn't even really want to be in a band when it all first started. He just wanted to skateboard or whatever. So then when he got in the band and then once he got married, Kaylin was on the way, and he was just like, oh shit, now I'm going to be missing all this stuff. So then he had to decide, am I going to have this career and try to be successful and tour and miss some of these things? Or am I just going to drop all that and go get a real job? And then I'll be there for these. So that's a huge thing that, artists, actors, musicians, painter, whatever, like everybody who's creative has to kind of come to terms with success at what cost, right?
Yes.
So it's different for everybody, but I think that you obviously made the right decision for yourself to sort of step back and be like, well, I'm not going to miss everything. I'll do this when I want to, because I want to. So good for you, man.
Yeah. And as I started to roll up on my 30s, I found out that I was going to be a father. It was not a planned thing. And it was really that crossroads. And I think that's the crossroads for a lot of people.
It's because that's when shit gets real.
It gets very real, because then I had been in a slew of other bands, like the Prize Fighter, and then just played under my own name solo. And, was there still that little inkling like, yeah, if a label came up to me, I'd be all about it. But then I was literally ready to pack up my car with everything that I owned and my dog. And I was going to move out of Long Island. I was going to get out of this place. I had my failures. The scene wasn't the same. It's expensive to live here. My parents didn't even live, my mom, my stepdad didn't even live in Long Island anymore. I had buried a lot of friends. I said, I'm done with this place. I'm out. I was going to move to Vegas. I said, let me start heading west. I'm going to go to Vegas. I had a friend that had lived there, was married, just had a house built. She was like, you can crash with us. I was going to play music on the side of the streets. I didn't care. I was like, maybe I'll learn a bunch of Elvis covers and I'll be that tattooed Elvis impersonator in Vegas. I don't know. I'm just like, I was at this point where I didn't know what I wanted. And then I found out that my daughter Madison was going to be coming, and I was like, all right, I'm not going anywhere. And now I realize more how important time is. My daughter's 14 now. My son Elvis is 10. And as every day goes by, they get a little too much older to want to hang out with dad, or they're a little more busy. My daughter does dance. She's in dance competition team as well. 5 days a week, she's at that dance school. And I am grateful for my decision to not continue pursuing that, because already I'm feeling like I'm starting to lose time with them, and I'm here every day. So I couldn't even imagine what my life would be like, or my relationship with my kids would be like, had I continued to go down that road. Is there still those sometimes when I'm like, man, I'd love to be in front of a packed house playing a show and getting paid for it? Yes. But sometimes it's just as simple as I love sitting on my couch playing my guitar with my dog next to me. And, the kids are upstairs laughing, playing video games. It's just as satisfying to me as playing to a full house at a gig.
That makes sense. My kids will be 29 and 30 this year. I was never a touring anything. I just worked a lot. And, like I said, they're almost 30, and I just sit back and I'm like, man, I sure feel like I missed a lot, and they're grown-ups now. I barely see them and stuff. And I'm just like, man, could I have done things differently? But I guess that's just a parent's thing, right?
Yeah.
Woulda, shoulda.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda. And you know what? Now the good thing is I share music with my kids.
Right.
I started teaching my son guitar a few years ago, and now he's picked up ukulele. My daughter's always had an amazing singing voice. She is great at what she does in her dance competitions. She's very theatrical. She loves Broadway stuff, but also she wants to start doing a little more music with me. I now play my solo music under the name Ordinary Life, because I didn't like using my name, because I was like, maybe I want to collaborate with people at some time. Maybe sometimes it's not just me, it's a full band. So I decided to create a name, which I took from a band that I love called Sam I Am, that has a song, Ordinary Life, that I love that song. So I recently released a cover of Not in Love, which features Robert Smith from The Cure. And my daughter and I always would sing it in the car. So I looked at her one day and I said, Madison, you want to record this song with me and let's put it out? And she was like, yeah. So we did that. And it has sparked this new thing now where I'm starting to work on writing some songs for my 14-year-old daughter. And now I'm taking music to a different level where I'm like, this is cool. Now I'm doing music with my kids. And it's given me like a new love and appreciation for it in a different way. So now I'm not chasing that Motley Crue dream. I'm chasing that, God, imagine me and my daughter writing a song and she blows up and goes and has that great career, or she ends up on Broadway one day. I'm like, cool. Or it's a tie that we get to have. My son and I go record shopping almost every Saturday morning looking for vinyl records. So I never gave up on music. I just shifted my love for music to other things. And now I'm tying it in with my kids. And it's just been such a great feeling. Through COVID, not going to live shows has been killing me. It's the longest I've ever not seen a live band. But I shifted it to starting a podcast, writing some more music, writing music with my kids, building my vinyl collection. I said, if I'm not spending money on going to see these bands, let me support them and buy the special edition vinyl. Let me go get the better record player and really enjoy my music in another way. Buying merch from bands, buying merch from clubs. Here in New York, we have a place in Brooklyn called St. Vitus. It's like the new
CBGBs. Right? Oh, sorry. You were going to say that.
I was going to say that. Yeah, it really is. I'm lucky enough to call the guys that own that place my friends. R.D. Shepherd was in Mind Over Matter, Airtype 11, a lot of bands that I looked up to, bands that I've played with, and friends that I've had shared many beers with. And they've had a lot of success with that place. And that place has been fucking awesome for the music scene. Just a real dude that loves music, owning a real club. So when they were struggling, I was buying merch from them because I was like, you know what? I'd be there 10, 15 times this year anyway, paying a door cover and buying beers. So let me try to help keep them afloat. Let me donate money. Let me buy a shirt. Let me buy a this. It's been interesting the way to try to keep music afloat through this whole thing, and how me missing playing and seeing live bands, doing some live streams, doing some this, doing a little of that. But it's given me this whole new love of music.
Now, you did mention that you have a podcast. We're about to talk about that in 1 second. But as a listener to your show, I have never missed an episode. And one of the things that I got from your show, I have actually stolen. I hope that's okay. And I have said it. I think I've said it 5 or 6 times or more on my show, which is, and I got this from you, if you want to continue to see live music, if you want those bands that you love to still be around after COVID, you have to do something to help them. If you were going to go see them, hell, even if you weren't going to go see them, they have to pay their bills. You go to their website, buy merch, go buy new music. If they have a donate thing on their website, do that, because they have to pay their bills. And if they can't pay their bills with their craft, they're going to have to go get a job, and then they're not going to be able to make new music for you to enjoy after all this shit is over.
Yeah, it's a scary thought to think of,
And it hadn't dawned on me until I heard you say it. And I was like, holy shit, this dude is correct.
It's so true, because listen, I fought the whole streaming music thing for a very long time. And now Spotify is my best friend. I love the fact that I have everything at my fingertips very quickly. So that's where not only am I supporting a local business by going and buying records at a record store, I'm supporting the bands. Yes, I can pick my phone up and I can listen to any band that I want through Spotify. But again, I'm paying $10 a month for that. That's nothing.
They're getting 10 cents.
Not
if
even
that.
They're getting fractions of pennies. So let me go buy this album that I love on vinyl. Now I'm supporting the record store. I'm supporting the band. And I've fallen back in love with a physical copy of something. Opening it up, looking at the artwork, reading along with the lyrics. Yes, I can read along with the lyrics on my phone or on my computer. But there is something so romantic about a physical copy of something. I'm trying to teach my kids that too. It's not just music, it's the value of something. It's an emotional attachment to things. There's a detachment in emotion in technology today.
Mm-hmm. It's a lack of tangibility.
It is. I met my fiance on an app. Not going to lie. Thank you, Tinder. But when I really think about how fucked up it is that we're judging people on the quick picture we saw, and it's a right or a left. It really pulls so much of it out. But on the flip side, the first time we got together, we met at a bar. We spent 7 hours laughing, drinking, and talking about music. We closed the place down. So again, a tangible thing. Once we were in the same room, it was so different. And it's the same thing with music. I've discovered so many bands by seeing them live. My favorite band on Long Island now is called Playing Dead. My podcast, Fascination Street, they are the opening track.
Oh, okay.
Good friends of mine. And it's just from playing shows together. Okay. And the singer, Sam, is the host of the Red River podcast. And that's the first time I was on a podcast, was his podcast. I adore this band. They are my friends. They are people I talk to every day. They're people I hang out with. It's tangible. It's crazy. And that's what I loved about the Long Island scene is your favorite bands sometimes were your friends. Your heroes were people you could bullshit with. They weren't unreachable. Elvis Presley, unreachable. Robert Smith, unreachable. Like, that's not going to happen. With them, like, they're not doing it for the money. They're doing it for the fun. And Sam and I were talking, like, they don't have physical copies of their stuff. It's all streaming these days, right? But there is something that you miss about going and discovering live music. So I never would know about Playing Dead because they're not on a label. If it wasn't for the fact that I was there when they opened up for someone else or played with a different band or played with my band, I wouldn't even know about it. And now we don't have that. So I'm even trying to find new bands via streaming websites and then going and, like you said, supporting them in another way. Buying a t-shirt, even a lot of them are doing Patreons. Like the Get Up Kids have a Patreon right now. And they're releasing like super rare live footage. They are giving first access to things. They're doing like live acoustic sets, and it's like a couple dollars a month. One concert in New York City, one night of me and my fiance going out, it's a $250 night. Easy. Between tickets and maybe a train ticket and dinner and a beer and a t-shirt, it could be $300. So I'll buy a $20 vinyl to keep someone going. They've got to feed their kids. I don't want them to have to go work at fucking Home Depot. So yeah, we just need to stand behind each other in general through this. But the music industry is taking it on the chin probably more than anyone else, because there's barely money to be made in that. A lot of my friends that make money touring with bands, whether they're guitar techs or lighting people or tour managers or even booking shows, they're having trouble paying their rent, So we all love music. We got to put our money where our mouth is.
Agreed.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
You know those popping phone handle things that you see on everyone's phones nowadays? Well, how would you like to put your logo on them? Does your podcast or band need new merch? Do you want to bring attention to your new book or film? Maybe you need something unique for your Patreon or crowdfunding campaign. Then visit thelogopop.com, where you can customize them with the logo of your podcast, band, business, art, school mascot, or whatever else you can think of. These are way more affordable than you may think at thelogopop.com. Mention where you heard this ad and get free shipping on your entire order. Remember, that's thelogopop.com to order your custom popping phone handles. That's thelogopop.com.
Let's get back into it.
Well, we have come to that point in the show where we are going to talk about your podcast, my friend.
Cool.
The way that I found your podcast is I told my Alexa, because I haven't checked in a while, and I know that some things have changed. I wonder if my Alexa will still play my podcast if I tell it to. And so I said, hey, Alexa, play the podcast Fascination Street. And she started playing your show. And I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, get out of here. And I was like, Alexa, stop. Like, she must have misheard me. I don't know.
Let me say it clearly.
Yeah. Alexa. and she did it again. And I was like, what the fuck? And so then I did a search on my phone and I found that you have a podcast called Fascination Street, which is, unlike mine, actually about The Cure.
It is.
Tell me why you decided to do that. Oh, and also I love that we both did street signs, but yours is like a
Yeah.
like mine is a street sign, like it says the name of the
Like
street.
the block you live on.
Right. And yours is a street sign that's like, caution, there's a slippery area over there or
Right.
whatever. So
Slippery
really think
when
it's
wet,
cool.
Bon Jovi,
Exactly. Tell me why you started it.
So, like I mentioned, my friend Sam has a podcast called Red River Podcast. Their podcast is more about like music, pop culture, movies, kind of goes all over the place. And basically, their podcast started because our group of friends, we just love to talk shit about anything. Our friend Brian used to always have everyone over to watch horror movies. We've all been in bands together. We all are always debating like, well, what band did this? And what's the most influential this? Or what's great songs about this? So they decided to make a podcast because somebody was like, you guys need to just record your conversations because they're too funny. So at one point they had asked me to be on the podcast to be a guest when their topic was the albums and movies of 1999. And there were just a lot of our favorite records came out that year, some of our favorite movies. So they were like, Antonio, you got to hop in on this. So I was like, cool. Now, at that point, I had barely listened to any podcasts. I was like, well, I mean, aren't those things just about like Wall Street and like, because again, I wasn't really on a streaming service yet. I was still just buying CDs or even buying on iTunes, which was still weird, but I loved waking up in the morning the day an album came out and it was on my phone or my iPod. So I did the episode with them. It was a lot of fun. Then I got into like really listening to all their episodes, and now I'm diving into that stuff. So Sam and I had talked about doing an episode about The Cure because we both love The Cure, and The Cure is probably my favorite band. We kept bouncing around the idea, well, what would the topic be? Are we going to just do top 5 songs? Are we going to rank the albums? Are we going to do this? And I said to him, I was like, this might be too much. The band's been a band for almost 40 years. 13 studio records, a bunch of live albums, and just a huge imprint on the music industry as being this band that, they're noted as like goth, or they're noted as this or that. They never really fit into a necessary mold. Are they an alternative band? Are they a pop band? Which, labels are just bullshit anyway. So I was like, you know what? I got recording gear at home. I have all this stuff. I could talk about music all day. I was like, maybe I should do this. And I said, text him. I said, Sam, what do you think if I started a podcast and just went through the whole Cure discography and talked to different people instead of us trying to jam this into one episode? I said, maybe you can come on my first episode, help me get my feet wet. Let me just do this. And he was like, yo, man, I'll help you out. I asked him a bunch of questions. I said, if I get annoying, let me know. And it just gave me something to do in this COVID time that was music related when I couldn't play shows. I couldn't go to shows, but I could talk about a band that I could talk about all day. And Fascination Street is one of my favorite songs of The Cure. When I was learning how to play bass in Scarab to build my chops, I'd play along with The Cure. And Fascination Street was just this fun, semi-easy bass line, but the fact that I could play it gave me that confidence to say, shit, I can do this. Again, Robert Smith didn't fit into any mold, and I didn't really either. I was in the hardcore scene. I sang, I didn't scream. I was in a band at one point with a girl singer. I loved Elvis Presley. I loved so many different kinds of music. I didn't want to fit into a mold, and I felt like The Cure was one of those bands that also didn't fit into a mold, so I associated with them very easily. And that, birthed the podcast. And at that point, I didn't even know how to look up tons of podcasts. So I just picked Fascination Street. I'm like, if it lets me put it up there, I guess it's okay. And then I discovered yours after I had already been on like episode 2. And I was like, holy crap. Funny how things work out.
What's funny is that when I found out that there was another Fascination Street and it was yours, that wasn't the first time that's happened.
Really?
About 6 or 7 months after I started my show, especially at the beginning, I was like, ooh, am I on this platform yet? Am I on that platform yet? So I'm always searching different things, seeing if I've got ratings here or comments there or whatever. And I went to iTunes and I put in Fascination Street and I came up, but then so did somebody else. It was called Fascination Street with Micah and Jimmy. And I was like, what the heck is this? And so I listened to it, and it turns out that it's like a minister in Ireland and like his 5-year-old son or something that are just having a conversation. And I reached out to him and I was like, I know you just started your show, but you might want to change the name of your show. And he was like, why would I do that? And I was like, well, here's why. You're a minister.
Yeah.
And you're doing a show with like a 5-year-old. So your show is going to be very, very clean. Mine is almost never, ever clean. And so my fear is that somebody's going to be looking for your show wholesome and family friendly, and they're going to find my show and then they're going to get mad at you or whatever. And then he kind of turned into a dick or whatever and was like, I'm not doing it. You change your show. But whatever. I was like, that's cool. But then 6 months later, he stopped his show or whatever. So
and this is something that I've dealt with forever. I mean, try to come up with a band name that hasn't been used.
Exactly. That's why you pick song names.
Yeah, totally. It's the easiest thing to do. And it's paying homage to something that you like,
Right. Exactly.
But the good thing is that I've started to see the ease in technology and the fact that people younger than us can sift through that stuff better.
Right.
So I don't think it was a worry of mine at that point, because I was like, I figured, well, if I just keep putting my descriptions about the Cure, I'm really trying to grab the people that are searching the Cure. I'm not worried that someone's going to be putting in Fascination Street. So I was like, I'm not going to sweat it. I was like, there's never going to be a name that nobody's ever used for anything else. I mean, it's just, I was like, all right. When I found out, I was like, should I change it? I texted my buddy Sam. I'm like, what should I do?
Wait, when you found out about me?
Yeah. I was like, is it okay? I was like, is that a weird thing? Like, I know with bands, the band Scarab I was in, we legally had to change our name to One True Thing at one point because of a legality with a band that was a cover band somewhere in, I want to say South Carolina or something. So I'd been through that. Scarab had 2 identities. Scarab had Scarab and One True Thing. And then the issue we were having with One True Thing is a movie came out called One True Thing.
Oh, no.
In the late 90s. So now you go to YouTube, you can find videos of Scarab and One True Thing, but with me in it, but you also find the clips from the movie. So I was like, man, we're in the day and age of information overload.
Gonna have to invent new words.
Yeah, seriously. I was like, what am I going to do? Am I going to start learning Klingon? I don't,
But the best part of that Fascination Street with Micah and Jimmy story that I told you is that there's a review on iTunes for my show that says, I love this show. Micah and Jimmy, you are the best. Keep doing this. But they gave me 5 stars. So I'm like,
say, hey, there you go. Yeah. Just roll with it, man. Totally roll with it. Why did you pick the name?
Nobody's ever asked me that. They only ask me if it's a reference to The Cure, and I always say yes. But the reason that I did it is I was sort of co-hosting with my friend on his podcast, and I was going on a trip, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a great opportunity for me to start a show, right? Because I'm going to have an opportunity to speak with all these different people, and it'd be really great if I could record that conversation. I was like, well, it'd be really great because this was going to be I think it was like a week-long trip or something. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have such an opportunity to stockpile so that I don't put out one episode and then I'm like, what now? Right. Yeah. So I wanted to be able to have a bunch in the can before I put the first one out. And at the moment that I was thinking about trying to name my show, I was like, what should my show be? I was cleaning my house and I had just done some work for a guy at his house who had all this studio equipment, all these music instruments. And I'm like, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I make music. And then he gave me like 4 of his albums. Right.
Cool.
And so I'm listening to his music while I'm vacuuming. There was this one part of one of his songs that was, and it's the beginning of my show, where it was just like, sort of a music sting, a little bit of a space, a music sting, a little bit of a space. And you can hear it at the beginning of my show. And that's when I talk. And I'm like, I believe everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, that'd be a cool spot to put an opening. So I asked him if I could use it. And he was like, yeah. And then I was like, but what would I call it? And so then I ran out of his music. I had listened to all 4 of his albums. And then I just went back to my old favorites and I put on The Cure. It was on random. And then as I'm vacuuming and I'm trying to figure out what to name my band, I'm trying to figure out what to name my podcast, Fascination Street comes on. And I'm like, well, holy shit. The whole reason that I want to do this is because I'm fascinated to hear people's stories. Right. And I'm like, and that's a great song. I fucking love that song and that band. And then I started tinkering with the musical opening and would it work? And then I was like, yeah, it will work. And then that's how I did it. So it came from, I was listening to some artist that you'd never heard of and The Cure sort of at the same time. And that's how I did it. I know that's really long and convoluted, but that's what it was. Basically, I was
That's
vacuuming,
awesome.
trying to figure out what to call it. And that song came on.
You mean you weren't vacuuming dressed in drag with a mustache like Freddie Mercury?
I didn't say that. I didn't say I wasn't. I didn't say I wasn't doing that. So tell people more about your show.
Okay. So basically what I decided to do was go through the entire Cure discography, all 13 albums in order. Because when I decided that I wanted to try to do a podcast about The Cure, I started listening to the albums in full because I was trying to also get into listening to albums again. Again, with streaming services, we tend to put things on shuffle, make a playlist, and I wanted to get back to loving full albums. So I listened to the whole discography all the way through, and I saw, all right, that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll do little side episodes about other little things. So basically, I take the journey with other people, and I've done one episode by myself of going through The Cure's discography because their music changes a lot. It's reached a lot of people. It is very different from album to album. And I wanted to really, really break it down because, you know, you could talk about a band, but that's what my friends and I do. Like, we'll talk about a band, and then when the new record comes out, we'll listen to it and we'll break down the tracks and we'll, you know, get into all kinds of weird conversations. So I was like, let's do this. There's enough people out there that love The Cure. I've had different people from different walks of life, you know, musicians, photographers, and I don't know anyone that's ever given me backlash and said they don't like The Cure. I feel like a lot of people, maybe they don't own a record, but every time they're at a bar and Just Like Kevin comes on, I guarantee you they sing it. So I wanted to just really go through it. And I figured also, maybe I'll continue on after I finish their discography and go through other bands' entire works because people will touch on episodes about bands, but I want to give respect to the entire discography. Even the last episode was about a Cure album that's probably would fall bottom on my list, but there are still things that I find awesome about it, interesting about it. And I wanted to go into all those things. Like, it's okay to say, like, all right, this album was a little weird. You know, it doesn't mean I don't like it or I hated it at first and it grew on me. You know, people are afraid to critique, and that's okay. So that's what kind of my podcast is about. Even for people that I feel like that don't love The Cure, but love music and maybe history, you'll learn some stuff. I just love hearing fucking nerds talking about music because I can relate to it, whether I like it or not. So I think it has more substance to it than just The Cure. I've even had people write me and be like, you know, I liked The Cure, but I didn't know how much I liked them till I was kind of taking this ride with you. Thanks for like breaking it down this way. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. So that's what it's about. I'm not sure where I'll take it when I'm done with all 13 records. I may go into another discography, another band I love, or maybe it's films of a certain director I love, maybe. But as for now, I'm going to keep taking this ride with The Cure, and it's my first podcast, and I guarantee it won't be my last because I'm having a lot of fun doing it.
It's a lot of fun. I am a subscriber, and I will be until probably a year after you don't release an episode. So
I've got to have you on.
No, that'll be cool. Now, I am nowhere near as versed as you on their music and their catalog and their history. I've learned so much listening to your show. I'm just like, holy fuck. I'm embarrassed to call myself a fan next to this dude.
No, but that's what's great though. It's very simple. Of what I ask my guests, their top 5 favorite songs and their favorite album of The Cure's. And then it could just be like, well, how did you discover it? Or what do you love about this song? I like hearing that stuff from people because a song comes from a songwriter's head, whatever the story may be, but its translation is different for every single person that listens to it. You know, like The Cure write very obscure lyrics or very deep lyrics, but leave it open enough where you can take it and interpret it your own way and put your own feelings to it. So whether you've only heard 20 Cure songs, 5 Cure songs, or 1 Cure song, I mean, I've literally been joking around about making people listen to a Cure playlist, even if they're not fans, and then interviewing them on the podcast. Because I would love to know what someone who doesn't listen to them thinks about it. I'm interested. Play them pictures of you and be like, what did you feel when you heard that song? You know, because for me, I can go into all of it. That's what's just fun about it. It's just everybody hears music differently, associates it to their lives in a different way, you know? So,
Well, like I said, am enjoying this ride with you, and I encourage my listeners to also subscribe. It's a lot of fun, whether you like The Cure or not. Just listening to this gentleman and his friends talk about how much they love something and how nerdy they get with these things. It's entertaining, to say the least. Even if you don't even like The Cure, I think you would enjoy eavesdropping on these conversations, because it's kind of like you're sitting at a bar overhearing these two dudes talk about some shit. And
Totally.
whether you like The Cure or not, you get to eavesdrop on some fools and hear them be excited about something, especially now when not only is nobody excited about anything, I feel like they're more excited to not be excited about things, if that makes sense. People are more ready and quicker to put something down than to enjoy or promote. And so I just think it's a great thing to listen to. It's like I said, it's like I'm eavesdropping on you guys at a bar.
Yeah, and that's what I was going for. You know, those fun conversations you've had at night with a couple drinks and a couple friends, and where those go. That's my favorite thing in the world. Even my best friend in the world, Scott, him and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, but we damn sure have fucking fun talking about it and arguing each other's points and then laughing about it at the end. So just as much as sometimes there's those fun conversations with other Cure fans, I also love just those conversations. Like him and I will argue about, all right, well, who's the best guitar player ever? You know, and like we'll get into those. But those conversations are the ones that are so much fun. And that's why I like podcasting and just conversations in general. You know, I love talking to people because you learn something new every single time. I've learned so much stuff from your podcast when I was listening to, you know, the Carol Baskin episode. It was beyond informative. And then it makes you think about life. You're only hearing one person's side of a story, you know, until you've got both sides of the story.
As told by them.
As told by them. Yeah. You're only given the information you're given these days on a post. Even, you know, with social media now, you're only getting little snippets at a time, and you never know the full story sometimes of things. So I love diving into these full stories. And that's what's great about podcasts. If I like a good podcaster, I don't care who the guest is. So I've discovered a lot of music and movies by listening to podcasts. I'm like, I don't know who this director is, but I'm going to listen to it because I know this guy talks a good shit and he's going to have good guests on. And then all of a sudden I'm like, man, I went back and I watched some of this dude's movies and they're fantastic. Or I went back and I listened to this band's album and they're amazing. So it's given me new open eyes to the world, to the entertainment industry. It's made driving so much easier. You know, being in New York, I mean, traffic is my middle name. It's sometimes I'm like, I get less stress in traffic when you're listening to fun people talk about stuff, you know?
I agree wholeheartedly. Now, we are a bit up against it. We're way over here, but feel free to say no, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Shoot.
You said you did a cover with your daughter?
Yes.
What's the name of that song?
Not in Love.
Feel free to say no. Can I play that song on this episode?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You want to introduce it like you're a radio DJ for me?
Sure. All right. This is Antonio Longo. I am the singer of Ordinary Life and host of the Fascination Street podcast about The Cure. And this is Not in Love featuring Madison Presley.
I saw your picture hanging on the back of my door. Won't give you my heart, no one lives there anymore. And we were lovers, now we can't be friends. Fascination ends, here we go. outside when you're coming home, 'cause it's hot inside. Is it that enough? Oh, I'm not in love. Could it be time has taken its toll? Won't take you so far. I am in control, and we were lovers. Now we can't be friends. Fascination ends. Here we go again. 'Cause it's cold outside when you're coming home, 'cause it's hot inside. Is it that enough? I'm not in love. I'm not in love. I'm not in love.
Nice. Antonio Longo, before I let you go, can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media and where can we find your podcast?
I do have a webpage, theantoniolongo.com, which will give you links to my YouTube channel that has my episodes of my podcast, as well as just me playing music and all different things, concerts I've been to, things like that. It'll give you links to Fascination Street Podcast, which is on all streaming networks, links to Ordinary Life, as well as anything else I'm doing. I also started a little clothing line called Wolfwear, WEER, like werewolf, where I've got some t-shirts available as well. And I did some repurposed clothing and things that I'm doing that I'm going to continue to work on that. And that'll just kind of keep you in the loop about all the things that I'm doing between podcasting, music, and whatnot. So it's theantoniolongo.com because there are other Antonio Longos. So I'm the Antonio Longo. And I really appreciate you having me on. This has been a lot of fun to be on the other side. And I look forward to having you on my podcast and we can talk a little nerdy music stuff as well.
That will be a lot of fun. And like I said at the top, this has been a long time coming. So I'm glad that it finally happened. Antonio, was there anything that I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about today?
Man, I could talk about stuff forever. So, I mean, we can always loop back around one day and come up with another topic to talk about, I'm sure.
All right. Well, Antonio Longo, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy COVID-filled schedule to hang out and let us get to know you a little bit better on Fascination Street, man. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much for having me on, bro.
All right, man. Hey, thank you so much, dude.
No problem.
Seriously, this was a fucking blast. Thanks for not being a dick. Thanks for being cool.
Absolutely not.
All right. Yeah. I'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Be good. Peace.
Peace. Hey Streetwalkers, it's time for a giveaway. Thanks to our generous friends at Sylvania, we're going to give away some Bluetooth speakers. What do you think? These are fairly special and limited Fascination Street Podcast Edition, as they have a little Fascination Street emblem on the end. This oblong Bluetooth speaker is about 8 inches tall and about 3 inches in diameter, and is IPX4 waterproof. So how do you win? Well, what I need all of you to do is post a short video to your Instagram story, your Facebook story, or even your TikTok, telling everybody why you love Fascination Street Podcast and which is your favorite episode. Make sure to tag the show in these videos, and each week I'll pick one winner to win one of these special limited edition Sylvania Bluetooth speakers, and I'll mail it to you. And I might even throw a couple of other Fascination Street Pod swag in there as well. So tell a friend, tell all your friends, and include it in your stories on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. And don't forget to tag the show, Fascination Street Podcast. Opening music is the song Magnolia from the 2001 album Intransigence, used with permission from Douglas Miles Clark. Closing music is from the song Say My Name off the 2021 album Underdog Anthems, used with permission from Jack's Hollow. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show on iTunes and wherever else you download podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. All the episodes are available there as well. Check me out on Vero at Fascination Street Pod and TikTok at Fascination Street Pod. And again, thanks for listening.